Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is True Crime with Emma, and on this channel I like to go into deep dives of true crime cases, talk about what happened in the situations, any theories that are going on, and today's case is one that I've wanted to cover for so long. It is one that has pretty much been on my mind since it happened back in 2017. We're also back in the pyjamas today. These are just little bare ones from Primark. I've also had a casualty with my nail, currently fully in half, so please just ignore that for the duration of this video. I've always just thought the circumstances surrounding this case are very strange. There seems to be a lot more going on than meets the eye. The official ruling was just an accident, however a lot of people don't believe that. There has been some insane theories going around on TikTok about this case, especially at the moment, so I wanted to bring it to this channel, see what you guys think, and bring you my own opinion on it too. I just want to give a little disclaimer that these videos are for educational, conversational and awareness purposes. All of the information that I'm going to talk about today has been found on online public forums, online public research, and information can obviously change over time. If anything has changed, please feel free to let me know, or if any details may be incorrect, please feel free to let me know in the comments as well. There is never any disrespect meant to any victims, families or anybody mentioned in these cases. As I said, they're all for awareness, conversational and educational purposes. So with that, let's get into today's case. Now the case that we are going to be covering today is the case of 19-year-old Kenneka Jenkins. If you have any interest in true crime, I can almost guarantee that you will have seen this girl's face and you will know at least something about her story. This case, like I said, has been on my mind for so long, so I'm just going to take you back to the start and we'll go through it in chronological order. Kenneka Jenkins was born on the 27th of May 1998 and she was from the west side of Chicago. She was described as smart, funny, happy and just an all-round responsible person. She was planning to study nursing after school after she was caring for her mum who actually had breast cancer earlier that year in 2017. She had her full life ahead of her and nobody knew that this was going to be taken away from her far too soon. On Friday the 8th of September 2017 at around 11 PM, Kenneka informed her mum that she was going to go bowling and to the cinema with her friends. Now this was to celebrate Kenneka getting a new job in a local nursing home, and she did take her mum's car away with her. Now Kenneka did not go bowling and to the cinema. Her and her friends were actually planning to go to a hotel room party at the Crown Plaza Hotel in room 926 or floor 9, room 26. And that was in Rosemont, Illinois. I feel like we have pretty much all done this at some point in our lives. I know when I was younger, if I wanted to go somewhere and I know my mum would not approve of it, I would say I was going to bowling or the cinema, literally the same thing, or that I was staying at a friend's house and yeah, I would go and do something that she absolutely would not approve of. So that's a pretty common thing here for, I think, any teenager. I think we've all experienced that. Kenneka and her friends can be seen on CCTV at around 1:30 in the morning, looking completely normal. They were laughing, they just looked like they were completely normal, and this was when they entered the lobby of the hotel and were picked up on CCTV. Now there was around 30 people in this hotel room party. I don't know, is this an American thing? So I feel like I've heard this quite a lot, not in just this case, but just in general, that there seems to be a lot of hotel parties. I don't know if this happens in the UK. I don't remember ever when I was growing up that this was something that happened. I have been away with large groups of people before and there has been like noise complaints straight away. Even when I've been in a hotel with like 2 people, there's been noise complaints when it's not even been that loud. I can't imagine how loud a room of 30 people would be. If any Americans are watching, please feel free to let me know if this is a common thing. I just don't really understand it, but that might just be kind of a difference in culture between the USA and the UK. Throughout the night, there was several posts made on social media by attendees of the party. There was Facebook Live videos, there was Snapchats that were posted as well. Everything kind of looked pretty much normal. Kenneka was seen in the early footage laughing, smiling and looking like she was having a good time. These clips would later become a huge topic of conversation to the public because they showed the last footage of Kenneka that was known to show her alive. As the night progressed though, there was additional videos that made it look like Kenneka wasn't having the greatest of times. There was also reports as well that she was falling, she was kind of stumbling over it. I think she went to give somebody a hug and she kind of like fell into them, which would kind of give the impression that she was very intoxicated. Her speech seemed slow, her movement seemed kind of impaired, and she just seemed, the only way I can kind of describe it is very away with it compared to what she was usually like. This is an important detail to note though, because the level of intoxicated she was would later come up within the investigation. This was a strange detail though, I want to add that, as Kenneka wasn't a heavy drinker. It's not something she done very often. She was actually pretty sensitive to alcohol from what I've read. She didn't handle it very well. It didn't take her a lot to get drunk, and it's not something that she would usually do, just getting completely away with it. It's not like a usual thing for her. Throughout the night, the social media posts, lives, etc. continued, and it showed different people in the hotel room. I'm pretty sure in some of them Kenneka can be seen at the bed at some point. There's other clips showing her standing or moving about the room, and a few clips were circulating widely online afterwards, with all the viewers kind of analysing her expressions and her body language, like really looking into it frame by frame. Now, during this time, witnesses later came forward and said that alcohol was being consumed. There was also marijuana being consumed, but Kenneka apparently didn't actually take any of that. She only had apparently one drink, according to her friends. There was also rumours and debate online about other substances, though the official toxicology report that was done only showed alcohol and topiramate. Topiramate is a medication that's often used to treat migraines or seizures, but it can also cause other adverse side effects when mixed with alcohol, including dizziness, confusion and poor coordination. It is very important to note that she was not prescribed this medication, and her friends and everyone that was kind of there, especially her family as well, have said that they don't know why she would have had this medication in her system. It was not something she was ever prescribed. From what I've researched, at some point between 2 AM and 3 AM, the girls decided that they'd had enough of the party and they wanted to go home. What they were intending to do was Kenneka was going to drive them home. I don't know how this was going to work, considering how intoxicated people say she was. I don't know why her friends would allow her to drive in that state. I don't know why she would want to drive if she was in that bad a state. I'm not 100% sure what the exact circumstances were, but from everything I've researched, the girls wanted to leave and they were going to leave the party somewhere between 2 and 3 in the morning. The next part of the story is where I'm a little bit confused as well. There's some reports that say that the girls were in the lobby of floor 9, so they were obviously in room 926, and some reports stated that Kenneka was in the lobby there. Some reports stated that she was in the lobby downstairs. I don't find it to be too relevant to the case which lobby she was in, but it was at this point that she noticed she didn't have her phone and she didn't have her car keys. I've been places where I've been intoxicated and I've just left stuff, especially like jackets and things. However, your keys and your phone is something that you need. Because Kenneka was so intoxicated, her friends decided to tell her to stay put and they would go back and get her items for her so that she didn't have to kind of go away in that state. Her friends go back to room 926 to get her stuff, and from what I've read, they did recover her phone and her keys. However, when they went back to whatever lobby it was, Kenneka was gone. She was missing. Her friends later stated that they most likely assumed that she was either at the bathroom or talking to somebody. It's not something for me personally that would raise huge alarm bells. If this was me in this situation, I would probably assume that, yeah, my friend had went to the bathroom or they were talking to somebody. I would never assume what was going to happen next was going to happen. Now, during this time, security footage later revealed that Kenneka was walking through the hotel by herself. She was bumping into things, she was holding onto the wall, she was hitting the wall, she was hitting a stair rail. She just looked lost. She looked like she had no idea where she was. From the footage as well, the place does look like a maze. I feel like I would even get confused there had I not been intoxicated, but she was just walking through elevators, going to different floors, kind of going in and out the elevator. She was walking to areas as well that weren't typically accessed by guests, and she seemed very unsure of the directions. She would sometimes stop, turn around, or she would just stop completely, go in a different direction, or she would just stop, look around and then continue again. She just looked very, very confused. Her friends then started to attempt to find her. Some of her friends later said that they were checking hallways to where Kenneka was in before, they were checking bathrooms. They couldn't find her though, and eventually their small bit of concern slowly turned into panic when they couldn't find her. Her friends began to worry and went back to Kenneka's mum's car as they had the car keys. They also had her phone, and again, I've seen conflicting reports. I feel like when a case is so heavily publicised, there's conflicting reports left, right and centre everywhere. However, some reports say they used their own phone to call Kenneka's mum. Some people say they used Kenneka's phone. Again, do I think it has a huge amount of relevance to the case? Not really. Regardless of what phone was used, they used a phone to call her mum Teresa, and they explained that Kenneka was missing and they couldn't find her anywhere. This phone call became a massive shifting point in the investigation because it showed that the situation was shifting from just being confused to alarm bells going off for everybody. I also cannot even imagine how worried her mum must have been when she got that phone call. After all, if you remember, she told her mum that she was going bowling and to the cinema, and then she's getting a phone call at 3-4 in the morning saying that her daughter's at a hotel party and she's missing and her friends can't find her. I would honestly be losing my mind. With this next detail, again, I have found conflicting reports. Does it have too much relevance to the case? No. Some sources say that the girls, so Kenneka's friends, went and picked up her mum and brought her to the hotel. Some people say that her mum got to the hotel by herself. Again, not really relevant to what's kind of happening, but I just thought I would let you know that I have seen conflicting reports in case anyone's confused. Kenneka's mother arrived at the hotel and she jumped into action straight away. She was asking the hotel if she could review the CCTV footage. She was asking for assistance. Her family and her mum have stated that she didn't feel like she was being taken totally seriously. She felt like they were just kind of brushing it off and not being very helpful. She requested to view the CCTV footage to see if she could find her daughter's last movements. However, she was met with a cold shoulder essentially. She was told that there was procedures in place. She wasn't able to do that and it had to be authorised. Personally, I don't know what would need to be authorised in this situation to check a CCTV footage. I get with kind of data protection and stuff, the mum might not have been able to view it, but surely the hotel staff could have got authorisation from a manager to check where she last was and then they would be able to search the hotel. I don't know if that's just me not knowing procedures with hotels and stuff. Again, if any of you guys have any idea, you can let me know. I just feel like what could possibly be the reason for not checking CCTV when a young girl's missing and vulnerable? I don't get it. Kenneka's friends and family gathered in the hallway when all of this was going on. Some of them were crying, some were frustrated. Her mum just kept insisting that something wasn't right. Kenneka had never went missing before. She had never not kept in contact with her mum. She hadn't done this before. There was a sense of urgency with what her mum was saying, that they needed help to find her and they needed to find her fast. I can just imagine her mother's worry and panic as well because, as I mentioned earlier, Kenneka wasn't a big drinker. Her mum had also been informed that they were drinking, they were intoxicated, and her daughter was lost. Like, this is just not something she would ever do, and her mum must have honestly just been worried out of her mind. As the hours passed with no sign of Kenneka, her mum decided to make a 911 call. This call would also be heavily scrutinised by the public later on down the line. Because of the way the dispatcher handled it with basically no urgency, from what I've kind of gathered and researched, the reason she had to have a missing persons report was so the hotel were able to hand over or to view the CCTV. Again, I just don't understand why they could possibly need that just to check maybe what direction she went in. I don't get it. According to the family accounts and the 911 audio that later circulated online, her mum was clearly in distress on this phone call. She was worried sick. She explained her daughter was missing inside the hotel and something was seriously wrong and nobody could find her. She made a very strong point to the dispatcher that this is not something her daughter would do. She had absolutely no history of doing this. She also reiterated the fact that her daughter was intoxicated and she couldn't handle her alcohol well, which would make her vulnerable. However, the response she received, she just did not feel like it was urgent or being made a priority at all. They told her to wait around for a few hours as Kenneka was most likely just sleeping off the drink either in a hotel room or with her friends. Why do we see this so much with missing person cases, especially when it comes to teenagers or young adults when their parent or guardian or whatever is phoning? The police always just jump to the conclusion to wait around for a few hours and they'll be back soon. Every time somebody goes missing, the first couple of hours are the most crucial. As the hours go by, the chances of finding them at all, or alive at least, they just go down by the percentage every hour. I will never understand why law enforcement do this. I don't understand for the life of me how they can just brush it off and say, oh, she's probably here or she's probably there. Like, it's never the case, and I don't know why nothing changes with this. Eventually, portions of the CCTV cameras were reviewed, and the footage showed Kenneka walking down those hallways alone in the early hours of the morning. As I said, she was very, very, very intoxicated in these clips. She could hardly hold herself up. She was stumbling, she was falling into the wall, she was using the wall to try and hold herself up, and there's one bit in the clip where she tries to kind of walk up a stair and just goes like straight into the banister. She can't walk. She is clearly vulnerable walking about the hotel like this. For her mum, I can just imagine how devastating this was to see her daughter like that in such a vulnerable position. She must have just felt so helpless as well, just not knowing where she was. However, even with the footage that was available, they weren't able to determine where exactly her location was. There was a lot of areas that weren't directly covered by cameras or that were potentially off limits to guests, some weren't recording, or some were only kind of motion detected, so it was hard to get a very clear picture as to where she was. Staff and police continued to search, but the building was huge, it was large. They searched over multiple floors, there was different kitchens, storage areas and service corridors. Looking for one person in this hotel room is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Nearly 24 hours after Kenneka was seen alive and well on those social media posts, her staff found her body in a walk-in freezer in an unused kitchen area. This area was not somewhere that would be regularly accessed by guests. From what I've read, this was an old kitchen, either getting renovated, but for whatever reason it was unused at that current time. This discovery was absolutely shocking, not only because of the strange location, but with how close it was to the public access spaces within the hotel. Investigators later stated that the freezer door could actually be opened from the inside. There was no sign of a physical struggle and no sign of forced entry. The official medical ruling determined that Kenneka died from accidental hypothermia, with alcohol, intoxication and topiramate listed as contributing factors towards her death. There was absolutely no sign of assault or any trauma during the autopsy that was conducted. News of the discovery of her body just honestly spread like wildfire, as you can imagine. There was crazy reactions from speculation to grief to anger to suspicion. Facebook live videos that were taken and posted on social media that night began to resurface, and people were literally investigating them frame by frame, searching for any form of answer that could point them in any direction as to what happened to her. Outside the hotel there was gatherings and protests. Many people were questioning how she could enter such an area unnoticed. Other people were heavily scrutinising the hotel and questioning how it took this long to get the investigation started and how they didn't find her sooner. And I do completely agree with this. The investigation and the search should have started straight away. If this had happened and they'd managed to trace her on the CCTV, they could have got to her before she passed away. Kenneka's mother publicly voiced her frustration and her heartbreak with what had happened to her daughter. She questioned the hotel security practices and the speed of the search. She emphasised that from the moment she arrived, there was absolutely no urgency placed on what was happening. These people had a duty of care to the guests that were staying in this hotel, and they just were not living up to it whatsoever. Kenneka's mum's persistence kept the case in the public eye for a long time after the official ruling was released. A wrongful death lawsuit was actually filed later on against the hotel and the security companies that they used. The argument centred around negligence, specifically how access to restricted areas and response procedures once a missing persons report was made. Years later, a financial settlement was reached, which kind of gave a legal closure to the case, but the emotional weight and the toll it must have taken on this family, that was not closure for them. Even though the details were publicly made available as to the circumstances surrounding Kenneka's death, for example, her cause of death was accidental hypothermia and intoxication with the alcohol and the topiramate, this did not stop the online questions and the questions from everyone else, to be honest. This led to some insane theories that we are still hearing about in 2026. The official conclusion is obviously that the disorientation and the intoxication led to a tragic accident, that Kenneka opened that freezer herself and for some reason thought that she couldn't get out. She then obviously froze to death, and the alcohol and the intoxication from the topiramate were a contributing factor to this death. The negligence theory obviously comes into this a little bit because people obviously like to blame the hotel. Was it directly the hotel's fault that she got in that freezer? I don't directly believe so. However, I would say that it is the fault of the hotel for not starting the search and looking at the CCTV sooner. I honestly, hand on heart, personally believe, now this is just my opinion, is that if they had started looking for her sooner, they could have saved her before she passed. Huge theories online that foul play was involved in some way, shape or form here. There's been many theories that go down loads of different roads. There's theories that somebody could have sexually assaulted her and taken her life and hid her in the freezer. I don't know if I believe this 100% because you can see her walking into the kitchen. She looks disorientated as she is walking through the hotel as it is. I do kind of just think I lean more towards that it was just an accident. However, I suppose nothing can be ruled out. Somebody could have lured her to that freezer, they could have attacked her and left her there. There's also theories regarding the foul play that her friends set her up and led her there so that somebody could do something to her. Obviously, this is all alleged, by the way. This is just stuff I've came across online. However, with the foul play theory, there is absolutely no physical evidence that points toward this that I have personally seen anyway. There is also some theories in this case that a cover-up from inside the hotel has happened. People have claimed that there's missing footage, there wasn't enough evidence, and then also the way the hotel reacted. Some people think somebody from the hotel could have been involved, or the evidence is purposely being withheld, although I don't think there is any verified proof of this. Again, if you have seen anything that is verified, please feel free to let me know. I don't like to go too much into wild conspiracies on my channel because I just like to present the facts. If that opens a conversation to some wild conspiracies, then so be it, but I don't want to bring that on my channel because I don't want to say anything that's not verified as fact. Now, the theories that I have seen on TikTok regarding this case recently are genuinely insane. People are saying that Selena Gomez's dad owns the hotel and they killed her to take her kidney to give to Selena. Holds absolutely no weight as far as I'm aware, and the autopsy would most likely say if her kidney was taken. There's been countless theories about organ trafficking as a whole when it comes to this case. Again, there is no solid evidence. If you guys want to open the discussion to that in the comments, then I'm all ears, but from what I've seen, there is no evidence of that. These debates and theories always continue because of gaps in timelines, gaps in CCTV, and human emotion and unanswered questions always leave space for interpretation. This case has been one of the most discussed incidents that I have ever seen, especially because it involves social media evidence and huge public speculation. This case has also sparked huge conversations about people with their friends when they're intoxicated. You should never leave your friend obviously by themselves, especially when they're in that state. Like, I could never take my eyes off somebody if I seen them walking the way that Kenneka did. Let me know what you guys think happened in this case. Do you think it was just a tragic accident like the official ruling says, or do you think something deeper went on here? I think regardless of what anybody thinks, we need to remember that at the centre of this case, this is a young woman. She has friends, family, and a future that she'll never get to experience. She also has a mother who has never stopped asking questions. Thank you all so much for being here and watching this video today. If you enjoy this type of content, please leave me a like, a subscribe, a comment, and hit the notification bell so you get notified when I post. As always, I am open to any case suggestions. You can either email them to me what's in the description, or you can feel free to pop it in the comments and I'll definitely add them to the list. I have a very, very long list just now that has about 200 to 250 cases on it, so I might not get to it straight away, but I will definitely add everything to the case. But thank you all again for being here and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.